Thank you. So there was a discussion on the Caribbean cruise about the cells know what to do, specifically about food.
Well, your cells are really intelligent, and they're offering requests and receiving direct responses from broader perspective. So that statement is absolutely accurate. It's possible for a human with their brain to focus upon things that are bothering them and cause enough static or resistance in the communication that the cells can't get what they're asking for, because there's a sort of jumble or muddle going on. But essentially, what you say is accurate. Your cells are intelligent, they know what to do, they're in communication with one another, they are in communication with source energy. And if you don't have beliefs that are muddying up the waters, then clear communication can happen, does happen.
So we don't need to talk to them specifically then?
What you have to say to them is better if you say it in general terms, because you couldn't possibly speak the language of the cell. And when you try, you feel frustration. Your cells know what to do, and they know what you wish.
So that brings me to the next question. General and specific.
Yes?
Clarity on that, please. In general.
Let's say that there's something that's happening in your physical body where you want your cells to do something different than they are doing. And you're broadcasting that message to them from a place of being aware of what's happening right now. So your now reality is in the way of what you're asking for. So if you could step back from those specifics and focus on other subjects altogether, just changing the subject would take away the probability of you introducing resistance, and then the cells could receive what they are asking for. Or it's possible that you could become so general on that specific topic that you are no longer in the way, but usually it's easier for you to just change the subject. We like talking about the vortex version of you, and we like talking about your inner being standing there with the vortex version of you, and we like talking about the power of all of that, and we like you finding ways that you can allow that power to happen on your behalf. But you came into this physical experience because you want to create. Can you imagine? Let's say that you have come into this life experience as an artist, a painter of beautiful substances on canvas. And you've tapped into that and you really like it, and you know how much you like it and you're really good at it. And then somehow you get the notion that to be a really good painter, that you have to wait for someone to tell you, pick up your brush, dip it in the red stuff, do this with it, now dip it in the blue stuff, do this with it, now dip it in the yellow stuff, do this with it. And you think, this is awkward and not very much fun and not very satisfying to me. Well, that's because that's not how it is. You've launched your rockets of desire, your inner being knows what you're reaching for, and the impulses that are being offered to you flow through you in this natural way. It's not like you're receiving a thought and specifically responding to that thought. It's that everything about your motion and gesture and impulse and ideas is flowing from that broader perspective of knowing. That was a little bulky in the analogy, but you get the sense of what we're talking about?
Yes. Which leads me to the next question.
Yes, get in there so they
These
can...
are my three questions, and we've led
Yes.
to each one. Impulses versus doing. And let's go back just to the last question.
A lot of what you are, all people, are doing is impulse inspired or impulse driven. Question is, what influence were you under when you got the impulse? Those streams of thought that are negative in nature can also have enough momentum going that when you get in the vicinity, you might be drawn into it, and then you have that impulse, even though it's certainly not an impulse that is being offered to you from your inner being. So that's why the most important, significant order of business must be for you to discern when you're in alignment and when you're not, what feels good and what doesn't. And powerful desires, that's the thing that we like so much about the process of meditation and the beneficial effect it has on you. If you take the time to quiet your mind, and you are able to release thoughts so that you allow your vibration to rise. And you are aware that a thought is forming in your mind, and it feels exciting to you or exhilarating to you when it forms. Then you know what the power of that positive influence feels like, you see. And so once you have introduced to yourself the words that Esther finds as we are projecting this idea is, as you identify and choose and isolate and then calibrate to that emotion, then you get so you can tell when you're under the influence of Source and when you're not. Oh, that's so helpful. Because when you're under the influence of Source, you're on your way to all things that you've been asking for.
And when we're not under the influence of Source?
You might be under the influence of your beliefs about your unworthiness, or under the influence of your beliefs about the demise of society, or you might be under the influence of your belief in evil when there isn't any, or you might be under the influence of a feeling of lack of worthiness, or under the influence of hatred that's being promoted in a sort of mob rule fashion.
And then to lift up to a higher vibration is?
To lift up to a higher vibration is to stop doing that thing you're doing that has caused you a lower vibration. So when we say stop doing that thing, you say, okay, I'm not going to do that thing, but now you're doing that thing. And so you have to find something else to focus upon. Change the subject. We liked your question about general or specific because, and if you've been listening to us for any bit of time at all, you notice that we do that a lot with all of you when we take you back to the basics. You were non-physical energy before you came into this physical body, and the larger part of you still is. And that non-physical part of you is pure positive energy. And you're fulfilling your purpose when life comes at you and causes you to know what you don't want. That's consideration and sorting. That's acknowledging life. That's choosing. And in the process, you are launching your specific and important, very personal requests of how you would like your life, or even the life of the world, to be different. You are contributing that. It matters so much. And your inner being, who has hung back from the specifics with a very important reason, because your inner being is non-resistant in nature, receives your request and understands it fully, and gives you undivided attention about that. And then the law of attraction responds to that, and cooperative components for this improved life that you have carved out from your important perspective begins to happen. Now, you might not ever reach the place where you can release the problem and allow the solution. You might be so dedicated to suffering and struggle because it's been defined and glorified to you by others that you might not let go of that. And it might be only when you make your transition into non-physical that you experience the delicious release of resistance and the full receiving of all that you've become. We just don't think you should have to croak to do that. We think you should be able to understand the concept, understand the law. There's not a shred of evidence anywhere in this universe to the contrary of what we are speaking about these laws. It is not a difficult thing for you to find evidence about once you know where to look. And more important, once you know how it feels when you find it, you see. It's interesting to us that the biggest struggle that humans have in receiving this information as we're presenting it is that they have trouble accepting that if something feels good to them, it is good. Somebody's really done a number on you to make you believe that if it feels good, there's something wrong happening with you. That if it feels good, it must be wrong. Let's get God to write a rule against sex. There shouldn't be pleasure. There shouldn't be pleasure, so many humans believe, in their attempt at controlling one another, you see. And so you got to get over that. You got to come to accept that when you feel good, you are having thoughts like your inner being is having. Your inner being loves always, and when you aren't loving, you have departed to some degree from your inner being. When you are blaming someone else or yourself, you've departed from how your inner being feels. And it really is not a difficult thing for you to show yourself what your inner being thinks about this and that and this and that and this and that and this and that, until you will stand in this stable place where you will believe in the goodness of life. You will believe in the eternalness of life. You will accept the goodness of yourself. You will see the beauty in others. You'll be eager about new ideas. You will be free from the bondage of having to hold yourself up in protection from others. You will be able to be out in the world where there are so many stimulating and delicious things to think about. There is just no comparison between being under the influence of Source and being under the influence of someone or something that's pinched off from that. It's not even a close call at all. Hate feels extremely different from love. And guilt feels entirely different from self-awareness of value and worthiness. They're such different feelings, you see. But you got to play with it some way. You've got to identify it and isolate it and then calibrate your thoughts to it in order to live happily ever after like you intended to.
I love the calibration part. We talked about that in Amsterdam. That was great.
No one said to you before you made your decision to come into this physical experience, well, just get down there. Just get down there and bang around, and hopefully it will turn out all right. There's no way of knowing. In fact, just bang around, try this, try that, try that, try that, try that, with no sense of what you're doing, and then when you die, we'll tell you the answer of how you did. You know who makes that stuff up? Humans. That's what humans tell you. You won't know until Judgment Day. And then someone will judge how you did. We say, there's nobody in non-physical judging you. All that's happening in the physical experience by those who are not loving.
Thank you.
Something more?
No, thank you.
Really good.
Thank you very much.